Okay, I have to start this deep dive with a confession. I was up way too late last night going through this stack of notes we have on Buddhist philosophy, specifically the breakdown of anatta, or, the concept of no self.
Oh,
And somewhere around 1:00 a.m., I sat up in bed because I thought I had genuinely discovered a loophole, like a massive cosmic get out of jail free card for the entire universe.
I love when you think you've outsmarted 2,500 years of philosophy in the middle of the night. Let me guess. You looked at the no-self doctrine and decided that if there's no you, there's no one to pay the bills.
Exactly. I mean, follow the logic here. The texts are so specific. They say there is no permanent soul, no fixed identity, no little me inside this head piloting the ship.
Right.
So my immediate thought was, wait a minute, if there is no me, then I can't technically be held responsible for anything. Why can't I just rob a bank, eat an entire cake, and when the bill comes, just say, hey, don't look at me. There's nobody home.
It is a very, very seductive thought process. And honestly, you are definitely not the first person to try and pull that thread. It's actually
Yeah.
one of the most common stumbling blocks.
Oh, good. So I'm not crazy.
Not at all. In fact, what you're describing is the central mission of today's deep dive. We're looking at a stack of sources, transcripts, Q&A boards, philosophical breakdowns that tackle this specific problem. We're calling it the paradox of no self.
It really does feel like a paradox, because on one hand, you have these profound teachings saying you don't exist, and on the other hand, you have the law of karma saying you are definitely going to pay for that cake.
And it feels like they can't both be true.
Right. It feels like the philosophy is contradicting itself.
That's the tension. And the goal here is to figure out whether this doctrine of anatta is actually offering us ultimate freedom, or if we're just misreading it as an excuse for ultimate irresponsibility.
Okay.
And I want to set the stage here, though.
Mhm.
This isn't just a religious discussion. The sources we have today treat this almost like a logic puzzle or a physics problem, really.
Yeah, it's all about cause and effect, momentum.
Exactly. It's about the very mechanics of why we do what we do.
So let's unpack this loophole I thought I found. The sources bring up this fantastic analogy that I think perfectly captures the confusion. It's the homeowner problem.
Right. This comes from that Q&A transcript we were looking at.
Yeah, and the question is basically, if there is no owner of the house, who pays the electric bill? It's such a practical, mundane way to look at a spiritual concept.
But it's perfect, isn't it?
It is. But seriously, the logic seems airtight to me. If the house is empty, if there is no self living in this body, then technically the debt shouldn't stick. The bill arrives, but there's no signature on the lease. If I'm not the owner, why am I writing the check?
And that is exactly where the trap lies. In the texts, this misunderstanding is often referred to as nathikariti, or essentially nihilism.
Nihilism, okay.
It's the dangerous belief that because nothing is real or permanent, then, well, nothing matters. It's the idea that you can just opt out of consequence.
But isn't that what no self implies? If I'm not real, my actions aren't really mine.
Not quite. The sources provide a really strong counter-analogy to explain why the electric bill still gets paid, even if the tenant keeps changing. It shifts the focus from who is paying to what is happening.
This is where we get to the river analogy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I want you to really visualize this because it's more than just a metaphor. Think of a river. The water is constantly flowing, moving, changing. The water that's here right now is not the same water that was here 5 seconds ago.
Sure.
So in a literal sense, there is no fixed, static river. It's just a process of flow.
Okay, I follow. No fixed identity. It's a verb, not a noun. If I step in the river today and come back tomorrow, it's technically a different river.
Correct. But, and this is the crucial part, if you dump a truckload of toxic sludge into the river upstream, does the water downstream stay clean just because it's different water?
No, absolutely not. The downstream water gets polluted.
Why? It's not the same water molecules.
Well, because the molecules are touching. They're pushing into each other. The sludge mixes in and flows down. The flow carries the poison.
Exactly. The water isn't the same water, but the consequence carries through. The toxicity flows from one moment to the next. The source material emphasizes that responsibility isn't about a static person frozen in time. It's about the continuity of causes and factors. You aren't a statue, you're a stream. And if you poison the stream now, the stream is poisoned later.
That's a really helpful shift in perspective. It's less about who am I and more about what am I transmitting. It's about the quality of the water.
Precisely. The electric bill isn't a punishment sent to a specific person. It's just the result of the energy used. The river doesn't decide to be polluted. It just is polluted because of what happened upstream.
But I have to push back a little bit here, because the river analogy makes sense for one lifetime. I can see how me in 2024 passes debt to me in 2025. It's the same body, generally speaking. I'm the same stream.
Sure, okay.
But the sources get into some really trippy territory regarding what happens after the river ends, or rather when a person dies.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and where the physics analogies get even more important.
Because my skepticism kicks in here. If I die, that's it, right? The me is gone. The biological machine shuts down. So how does this debt or this karma jump from a dying person to a totally new baby born somewhere else? That feels like we're moving from logic into magic.
The sources actually try to keep it grounded in logic. They use an analogy involving billiards that I found fascinating because, again, it sounds more like Newtonian physics than spirituality.
Okay, walk me through the billiards table.
Imagine a billiard table. You have ball 1. It's moving fast, full of energy. It slams into ball 2. Now, immediately after the impact, ball 1 stops dead.
Okay, so in this analogy, ball 1 has died. It's no longer moving.
Right. But what happens to ball 2?
It shoots off across the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, is ball 2 the same ball as ball 1?
No, obviously not. It's a completely different ball, different atoms, different spot on the table.
Correct. But, and this is the key, ball 2 is moving entirely because of the momentum transferred from ball 1. The force, the direction, the spin, all of that was inherited. The source explains that this isn't about some cosmic judge on a cloud-keeping score. It's about natural laws of energy transfer. The momentum of your actions, your karma, doesn't just vanish when the biological machine breaks. It transfers.
So it's momentum over identity. Ball 2 doesn't have to be ball 1 to feel the impact of ball 1's strike.
Precisely. It's a causal chain. Ball 2 is the heir to ball 1's velocity. And the sources give us another layer to this with the candle analogy, which helps clarify the connection.
Is this the one about lighting a new candle from an old one?
Yes. Imagine candle A is burning low. You use it to light candle B, and then candle A goes out. Is the flame on candle B the same flame as candle A?
I mean, Philosophy 101 says no. It's burning different wax. It's on a different wick. But it's also not the same flame.
Go on.
It's a continuation of the heat. You couldn't have the second flame without the first.
That's the nuance. It is the continuity of heat and energy. It's not identical, but it's causally linked. You can't have the flame on B without the flame from A. And the sources introduce a term here that I absolutely love, the energy heir.
Energy heir. I highlighted that in the notes. It sounds like a sci-fi concept. Like I'm inheriting a fortune, but instead of money, it's velocity.
It practically is. The idea is that the future version of you, whether that's you in 10 years or a future life, inherits the code, the habits, the momentum of your current intentions. You're writing the code that the next version of the software has to run.
Okay, I get the physics of it. Momentum transfers, heat transfers. But I'm only the skeptic again, because this is where I get stuck, and I think a lot of listeners might get stuck here too.
Go for it. Where does it break down for you?
It breaks down to the concept of fairness. This is the memory loophole that the sources bring up. The objection is basically, if my future self, or this so-called next life, doesn't remember what I did, isn't it unfair for them to suffer?
It's the classic, why should I pay for a crime I don't remember committing?
Argument.
Right. Why should I care about a stranger? If ball 2 doesn't know ball 1 hit it, it's just random suffering to ball 2. If I wake up as a new baby and I have no memory of being the guy who robbed the bank, why should I pay the price? That's not justice. That's just tragedy. It feels cruel.
This is a very common objection, and the source material counters it with a very visceral, almost painful analogy. They call it the baby in boiling water scenario.
Oh yeah, I read this. It made me wince.
It's effective, though. Imagine a baby, let's say 18 months old, reaches out and touches a pot of boiling water, gets severely burned. Now, fast forward 20 years. That baby is now an adult.
Okay.
Do they remember the specific moment at 18 months old when they touched the pot? Probably not. Conscious memory of infancy is extremely rare.
Right. They won't remember the event. They won't remember the decision to reach out.
But here is the question. Does the lack of memory mean the scar isn't there?
No. The scar is definitely there. And more importantly, the source suggests that a deep-seated fear of heat or fire might persist in their subconscious. The damage, the suffering is real, regardless of whether the conscious mind remembers the cause. The text argues that memory isn't a requirement for damage to exist.
That is terrifyingly logical, but it still feels unfair. The adult has the scar, but they don't know why.
It is harsh. But the point the expert in the text is making is that nature doesn't care about our human concepts of justice. Gravity doesn't care if you didn't mean to fall. Thermodynamics doesn't care if you forgot the stove was hot. The burn happens because the conditions for burning were met.
So nature isn't a courtroom, it's a machine. It just processes input and output.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And to really drive this home, because I can see you're still wrestling with the fairness of it, the source offers a thought experiment. It's the needle challenge. And I want you to really genuinely imagine this.
Okay, I'm ready.
I make you an offer, I tell you. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I am going to completely wipe your memory. You won't remember your name, your past, or this conversation. Blank slate. And immediately after, at 8:05 a.m., I'm going to stab you with the giant needle.
Hmm.
Do you agree to the deal?
I mean, no, absolutely not.
But why? Think about your loophole. That person at 8:05 a.m. won't know they're you. They won't remember agreeing. Technically, according to the logic that if I don't remember it's not me, that's a stranger. Why do you care if a stranger gets stabbed?
Yeah, but it's still going to hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the aha moment. You instinctively know that the experience of pain is real, regardless of the identity attached to it.
I see. So the continuity of feeling overrides the continuity of memory. I don't need to remember being the person who signed the contract to feel the pain of the needle.
Yes. The source concludes that nature doesn't care about fairness. It cares about the reality of suffering. Pain feels like pain, regardless of who remembers the cause.
Yeah.
So dismissing the consequences because I won't remember is a failure to understand that suffering is objective. It happens whether you have a name tag on or not.
That shuts down the memory loophole pretty hard. It essentially says, you don't want to suffer, period. It doesn't matter if the you suffering remembers the you that caused it.
Right. The suffering is the common denominator.
So if we accept that the momentum continues and the suffering is real even without memory, we still have to deal with the person who says, I don't care?
The hedonist.
Yes, the hedonist's trap.
Because I can imagine a listener saying, okay, fine, pain is real, but pleasure is also real. Can't I just use the no-self logic as a cheat code? Can't I just say, since there's no real me, I'm going to maximize my pleasure right now, party hard, and let the next guy, the energy heir, deal with the hangover? It sounds like a clever hack, right? Take the cash and run. If I'm not real, why not just have a blast? But the expert in the source points out that this is logically incoherent. It's called the trap of defilement.
How does it backfire? Because it sounds like a pretty good time, at least for a while.
Think about it deeply. Why do you want to hoard pleasure? Why do you want to ignore the future to satisfy the present?
Because I want to feel good. Me. Right now. I want the cake.
Exactly. The very act of wanting to hoard pleasure proves that you actually have a very sticky, very strong sense of self. You are clinging to the I that wants to be happy, to my pleasure.
So
You are trying to use the high-minded logic of selflessness to serve the ultimate selfishness.
Wow. So the moment you try to use Anatta to be selfish, you prove you don't understand Anatta.
Precisely. You're caught in a contradiction. You can't claim there is no self while frantically trying to pleasure the self. The source explains that this desire, this tana or craving, is the fuel that keeps the whole billiard table running. It's what generates the heat.
There was an analogy about dreams here that I thought was really poetic, but also kind of tragic.
Yes. The text compares this craving to someone who wants to keep having good dreams. They love the dream world so much that they refuse to wake up. But the desire to keep dreaming is exactly what keeps them trapped in the sleep cycle. If you were trying to be happy now at the expense of the future, you are just heating up your current life process. You aren't escaping. You're just adding pressure to the system.
It's like revving an engine in neutral because you like the sound, but you're just overheating the car.
That's a great way to put it. You're creating friction. And that friction is the suffering you're trying to avoid.
So we've debunked the free electricity loophole. We've established that the energy heir inherits the bill and that trying to cheat the system just makes the bill higher. So what does this all mean for how we should actually live? Because honestly, this could sound really depressing.
I get that.
It sounds like we're just trapped in a machine that punishes us for things we don't remember.
It does feel deterministic.
Yeah.
There's cogs in a wheel of pain.
Yeah.
But this is where the sources reframe the entire concept of compassion. And I think this is the most beautiful part of the deep dive.
Usually we think of compassion as just being nice to others, opening doors, donating to charity,
Right. But in this context, compassion is redefined as loving your future self, or more accurately, loving the process that will become the future.
Oh, I like that.
If you understand that you are a stream, not a statue, then compassion is simply taking care of the stream so it doesn't arrive downstream polluted and toxic.
Huh.
You aren't being good to follow a rigid moral rule book. You aren't being good to please a deity. You are being good because you are the steward of an ecosystem that happens to be you.
It's practical maintenance. You don't dump sludge in the river because you know the river flows into your own backyard eventually.
Exactly. It shifts morality from obedience to wisdom. You don't touch the hot stove because it's a sin. You don't touch it because it burns. You don't generate toxic energy because you know that energy has to go somewhere.
And this leads us to the ultimate goal mentioned in the text, nirvana.
Right.
Now, nirvana is a loaded word. Often people think it's this mystical void where you disappear and everything goes black. Or they think it's a heaven where you float on a cloud and play a harp.
But based on these physics analogies we've been using, the heat, the fire, the momentum, the source describes it differently.
How so?
Remember the heat, the friction from the billiard balls, the burning of the candle.
The momentum, the craving.
If Anatta isn't an excuse to sin, it acts as a tool to stop the momentum of suffering. By realizing there is no self to protect, no ego that needs to be constantly fed with pleasure or defended from pain, you stop generating that heat. You stop hitting the billiard ball so hard.
So the system cools down?
Yes. The result is a cooling of the life process. That is literally what the word nirvana relates to, extinguishing a flame or cooling down. It's not a nihilistic void where nothing exists, but a state where the frantic, pressurized momentum of craving stops driving the machine. You become a better steward of the energy you pass on because you aren't obsessed with owning it.
It's interesting. The sources seem to conclude that understanding that you don't really exist actually leads to more responsibility, not less.
That's the headline. When you drop the illusion of the self, you don't drop the responsibility. You realize that you are just a custodian of a very long, complex chain of events, and suddenly you care very deeply about not passing a broken chain to the next link.
It's funny, we started this episode thinking we found a way to get out of paying the electric bill.
And we ended up realizing we are the ones generating the electricity.
From no owner, free electricity, to realizing we are the stewards of a river that flows into our own future. It's a complete 180.
It is. And I think the aha moment for me is going back to that billiard table. You are just a moment in a long game of billiards. Your only job is to not hit the next ball into a ditch.
I love that. Don't scratch on the brake.
Keep the game playable for the next turn.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from homeowners and toxic rivers to memory wipes and hedonism. It turns out ancient philosophy has a lot to say about the physics of our daily choices.
Sure.
It's not just sitting under a tree, it's about how we manage energy.
It certainly is. And if I can leave the listener with one final thought, it would be this. Something derived from the source's final warning to us.
Let's hear it.
We talked a lot about using philosophy to justify our actions. The source asks us to look in the mirror and ask, if you are using deep philosophy to justify doing whatever you want, are you actually free?
Yeah.
Or have you just built a much smarter, much more sophisticated disguise for your ego?
Oof. That is a heavy one to chew on. Are we enlightened or just really good at arguing for our own bad habits?
That's the question.
Well, on that note, we're going to leave you to ponder your own billiard balls and rivers. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Take care of your stream.
See you next time.